so we come back to this subject of music. How are we going to do music in Advent Christmas? And so what these webinars have done is to sort of help you see how you could involve your musicians in Advent Christmas. And we started this series early enough so that hopefully you can be learning these skills and taking your time with creating some very special things for Advent Christmas. We want you to be able to have fun learning a new skill, have your folks have fun, and even more important, try something that's not difficult first. Try something that's really familiar, that's really short, so that people can get their feet wet, so that people can learn how to do this, and you can learn how to do the editing. So that was kind of our thinking about this. So today we're going to just give you a little overview of the webinars, just very brief. If you're watching this recording and you haven't watched any of the other recordings yet, this will kind of give you an idea of which ones to watch. Of course, you can watch them all, but if you need to be economic with your time, let's give it a go and see what might be a first step for you. All right, let me share my screen and we'll take a look at these, and Karen's going to help narrate because she was at each and every one of them. I almost was at each and every one, but you were at each and every one of them and highly involved with the presenters. So Karen, thank you so much. What a gift. So these were the original 9, and then we added 2 more. So let's go through them. We started with the Creating Connection Through Song, and that was the one that Mark Miller and I did. And it was really kind of it's an orienting kind of thing. Why would you want to do virtual choirs? Why would you want to put the time in? And it was really to convince you, hopefully, that doing this would create connections for your choir, but also with your congregation. And that, in fact, the technology that you're learning in these webinars could be used not just for choirs, but for many different things, for readers, for so many, for congregational hymn leading, all of these things. So that's a really great orienting webinar. And if you have a choir that's a little reticent, that's like, oh, I don't know, that seems really scary, it's a new thing, this might be a good one to send them, to say, just watch this, because they might get excited about the whole endeavor watching this. So Karen, would you add anything to this about that one?
I think you covered it really well. And I think the idea of sending it to folks that are hesitant, that are unsure, that are worried, or that even are saying this isn't worth our time, this is a really good webinar for people to watch, to say, oh, wow.
Yeah.
This
it also, it occurs to me that if you are looking for some help with some extra funding to maybe pay for a program that you'd really like to use, this would be a great webinar to send to someone to say, would you help us with this? We just need $79 for this program. Is this something, I know you said that you wanted to help support in any way you could and that you had an extra gift to give. Consider this one. So that could be a really good use of that video as well. Okay, so the second one was what you need to get started. Now this was a great overview. So if you are starting from scratch, you've never heard of any of the programs before, this is a good one. Karen, tell us a little bit more about what this one was about.
In this webinar, Steve and Chen went through the process that we recommend for virtual choir. There are maybe a few ways to go about putting it together, and we covered a few of them, but he talked about the process of recording a lead track and then sending it out, how needing 2 audio devices for your choirs to do their recordings, how to get their recordings to you, and then what editing programs you might need, starting first focusing on sound and then adding video in a variety of ways, should that be something you want to do. Right. And we got a lot of information on specific equipment like microphones and headphones, as well as the pros and cons of a lot of different softwares.
Yeah, so this is a really good overview. Know that when you watch this, you're not going to get in the weeds about details about how to. You're going to get an overview of the different things you might need, just a layout of kind of what's involved if you've never really heard of any of it before. So this is a really good orienting one about the different kinds of software that then we get into the weeds later about. So the next one was selecting music and preparing lead tracks. And this one really this is really for those of you who are going to be preparing what you're going to send to your choir. Karen, what would you add about this one?
This is a great webinar for music directors or those who are selecting the music. He spends about the first half of the webinar talking about what you're looking for in music, familiarity, different. He talked about some of us who are not musicians like me learned the musical term rubato, which is like where you slow down the choir and you give all that emphasis. And he gave you some hints that, that can make it difficult. A lot of that within a lot of tempo changes that you have to watch the director can make it difficult. These are things that are just helpful when you're picking your piece of music. And I think this is one, if you're the technical person that's going to be putting these together, this might not be one that you choose to listen to, but if you are the music director or the choir director, this is a great one.
Well, and actually it might even, let me make this suggestion, that if the choir director is not going to be the technical person who's going to be putting it together, that the two, if it's two of you, you might want to watch this together, because what you choose and then the kind of things that creates for the editor, that's a good common knowledge. So that might be a really important one. Mm-hmm. Preparing lead tracks, is really important. He talked about some tips that you can do to give yourself some help once you get to the editing. Mm-hmm. And also what will help your choir, because sometimes we think, I'm just going to send them the accompaniment, which you can do. But a lot of our choir members are used to having somebody next to them, right? Helping them sing the right line. So, he talked about creating tracks that would have the soprano part and the alto part and so different parts so people can sing along. And I find that to be really, I'm a strong singer, but when I have found as I'm playing with this, when I just try to sing to a track out of the computer, I feel timid. So there's some tips in there that might help. With really bolstering your folks' confidence so that they sing as they would sing, in the space.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one was preparing your choir to record. What fun we had on this one. I thought this was so fun. We had a lot of people, because a lot of people sent the link to their choir members so that they could come on and watch it. And this is a really good one for your choir members to watch. But especially for you, if you're the one who's going to be sending information to your choir members, watch it first, figure out what you're going to do and what you're going to get really clear about your instructions, because clear is kind is what I believe. When you're super clear, then people can stay excited about it rather than their anxiety level rising even more. What else would you add to this one, Karen?
I think this one, Stephen, is really practical. I love the screenshot you put up there. He showed us him recording a video and where he selected. He's in a like a vacation home. He was at a rental home, right, for vacation, and he found a window so that he would have good light, and he angled his phone so basically what you could see behind him was pretty much his ceiling, and he set it up there and he did a recording. And so we really got to see what you get. And I think that's important for your choir members, because until you put a phone in front of you and, turn it on, selfie mode, and you look, you don't really know what you're going to see. Right. I've been recording videos for worship every week, and I'm always surprised when I flip it on and I'm like, what's in frame? What's going on here? What do I really look like? And then suddenly you realize that, like, you can hear things like the virtual school that's happening with the child or whatever. And
or the air conditioner kicks in, or, things like that you don't think about. Just turn off the air conditioner for a little bit, or the heater, so that you don't get that coming up in it. Yeah.
And he covers that. He talks about creating a quiet space. He talks about, I think at the very end, he even talked about ways that if you have a really live room and you don't have a way to block out some of the sound, he talked about ways that you can, maybe quickly dampen the sound in a room, get a quieter space. So.
Yeah. And the comments on this one from choir members was, "Thank you so much. This was very clear." So it really is a good one to look at to prepare your choir members who just, are not are worried about, how do I do this? It feels like, oh my gosh, a new thing.
Everything
So then
from
we
have two phones, how to orient your phone and
Yes.
where to find the microphone. Oh, so much about the pages. That was the other part I remember, where to put your music.
Yes, because we talked about, you can't hold your music in front of your face. And then if you turn pages, then you get the kind of, page turn sound. And so we talked about, stacking up cookbooks, putting up a little cookbook thing, or getting music stands to your folks so that they can have something on a stand. So really, really super practical things. Yeah. And those of us who are worried about our double chins, we talked about, where to put the cameras to avoid, the double chin.
Angle. High angle.
Okay, so then we got into the weeds, right? This is where we started into the very technical webinars about each, several different kinds of programs. We started with GarageBand, so we started with audio programs. So GarageBand was one, and Audacity was one. And so I don't think we need to say too much about these individual ones, but just know that each one has different features, but some of the techniques are very, very similar. And so it's just a matter of what feels best to you, or what's affordable to you, or what kind of computer you have. But each one of them is going to go step by step in how you cut something, how you line something up, all of those different kinds of things. So we started in on that. And then we went to the video part, right? So this is, actually some people do the audio and video in the same program, and that's fine. We don't all have to have super high quality, but it was really informative to understand that a sound and audio editing program will help you do many more nuances than a program that's made primarily for video editing. And so you work in that audio program, and then you put that into your video program, the master soundtrack, and then you're able to line things up visually even better. So we looked at Movavi, and we looked at Soundtrap and Upbeat Music, and we looked at DaVinci Resolve, all video editing programs. Karen, do you want to say anything about any of those?
Yeah, I want to speak Soundtrap and Upbeat Music, if you can go back. That one is actually not a video editing program.
Okay.
Soundtrap is audio editing. It's an online audio editing app. It's similar in that way to BandLab, and we'll talk a little bit about BandLab in a minute. But so really, we did 4 sound editing apps, GarageBand, Audacity, Soundtrap, and BandLab. Soundtrap and BandLab being web-based. So that meant that you don't have to download as much on your computer. I mean, there are pluses and minuses to it. One of the things they noted is that because sometimes you might have people record directly into it, which can be great, but it also means that they might do something to your project that you don't want them to do, which can get into the weeds. So that's what Soundtrap is. And Upbeat Music is basically a cappella for not iPhones. I mean, you can use it on an iPhone, but it's an Android version of like acapella.
Perfect.
So that's what that is.
Yeah, great. So we then we added, just Wednesday, we did another sound one called BandLab. And I think at the end of that webinar, we were all like, oh, wow, this feels really doable. And it felt really like a great, maybe first step for audio.
Mm-hmm. I think that this webinar, if you're nervous about audio editing, and you might be, but even if you're not, if you're starting with audio editing, we really liked this one. It felt simple. It feels the program seemed maybe a little bit more intuitive than GarageBand or Audacity seemed. And the webinar is arranged really helpfully. It's organized in such a way that it feels manageable.
Yeah, yeah. So friends, today what we're doing, thank you, Karen, so much for helping with that overview. Obviously, the one I didn't get to was the one that the one that you had to correct me on. But that's all right. So that is a helpful way to look at all of them and see what the different purposes were and what to look at. So today I want to show you some examples of what people have created. for the direct purpose of encouraging you yet again, like we did on the very first webinar, encouraging you to go for it and show you that, you know, oftentimes we look at these professionally done ones and we think, oh my gosh, I could, you know, that seems really cool. I'd love to do that. But then we start to work with it and we think, oh my gosh, I'll never get to that. So we quit. We stop thinking that we can do it. And I want you to know that you can, whatever you put together, the creating connection part that we talked about in the first webinar is the point. So with all of these, what you'll do is you'll figure out the skills you need to do what you can do with the programs that you can afford and that make sense to you, and then you'll do it. And people will love it because it is your people, because it is making connection. So we're also going to talk about, the reason why I called this Making Tech an Art Form is that we also want to talk about the aesthetics of it. So besides all of the technical things that we did, there's also the fact that we want it to have a feel and we want it to fit with the rest of the service. And so there's some aesthetic decisions that we can make, and we're going to make some observations along the way by looking at these examples.